Her idea of child raising was called permissive everything. Mine wasn't. Woman, I said, you've experimented with everything from my son to my coffee. I want instant Maxwell House coffee. Good to the last drop. Maxwell House. The instant that tastes like coffee. Be a good little Maxwell housewife and don't experiment with my son or my coffee. And I'll love you a lot.
Maxwell House coffee, instant and ground.
The women's rights movement, which began in the 60s, was long overdue. Women before the movement were living out their lives in what could be described as a comfortable concentration camp, life in the suburbs. Many women felt and may still feel unfulfilled and trapped, living a life that society has chosen for them.
When I was 5 years old, I could do a beautiful job of arranging cookies on a silver tray. And my job was to go and hand out little napkins to the guests that would come to our house. And so I was well into Smile, and I was well on my way to being a little Southern belle. And you always dressed up in nice little dresses, and you never, ever wore pants. Women could not wear pants. That was prohibited. In fact, when I went to college, I could not even wear shorts to my gym classes. I had to wear a raincoat over my shorts to go to gym class because you just didn't wear pants. And then you had to wear girdles. Young people don't understand girdles, but that was like torture, you know? And high heels when you get older. So that was a sign of becoming a nice Southern woman. And then you learn with guys that it was very important that you look at them kind of like the adoring wife that we see. You would look at them adoringly and laugh at their jokes. You were never supposed to be outspoken or disagree with guys. You were supposed to be very subservient. That was really how you were raised.
Women's roles were limited by what society thought was appropriate for them. How to dress, what to say, and what profession to go into were all under scrutiny. Societal norms for manners, socialization, and even property rights were strictly followed.
There was a law in North Carolina at the time about small businesses that we had a contact from a woman in the East who had her husband have an alcohol problem. So she went out and started, I think it was a cafe. The problem was that the law said that all the rents and profits belonged to him. So he would come in and take money out of the cash register, and she contacted now because she was trying to get some help, but she didn't have any legal recourse.
Women were beginning to realize just how restricted their rights were in all aspects of life. They had feelings of unfulfillment that not even perky TV commercials for washing machines could alleviate. Work, school, and personal rights were all limited, and women were frustrated.
People have great stories about they graduated law school, some of the good ones, because women got into law school, major universities, and did that. But they would graduate that and go to a lawyer office and law office and want to apply for a job, and they would say, well, we could probably put you in the secretarial pool. I mean, it was just a constant good time. And no matter where they graduated from or how high in the class, and that's what we're always judging lawyers by, but that didn't make any difference. If you were female, it didn't help a lot.
When I graduated from college, there were 3 things I could be. And those were, I could be a secretary, a teacher, or a nurse. And of course, the ultimate was being the housewife. So you went to college to get your MRS degree. I was both a dual English and philosophy major in college. And my mother insisted that I get that I minor in education so that I would have a fallback position in case I didn't get married right out of college, which you were supposed to do in those days. But I was the wild one and joined the Peace Corps. I had to get my fallback education certificate. So it was very limited what you could do there. And there were really very few role models of women. You didn't have aspirations because you never you know, you never had a female doctor, you know, you never heard of a female in any kind of leadership position. So it was just, that's what you did.
They came together and finally realized that if blacks needed civil rights, black women did too, and white women. You know, and it grew really out of the civil rights movement. And the protest part came out of the Vietnam War.
It began to materialize that people, Betty Friedan wrote the book that probably, I've got people thinking, gee, you mean women do not feel fulfilled by doing these jobs, which is what the attitude was a lot. And then Gloria Steinem picked up, as she was doing research and finding out and following Betty Friedan. And at some point, the two of them, actually they were not great friends together, but they were doing things.
And the women that were the leaders, who were primarily in the large cities, New York City, Chicago, out in the San Francisco area, when they started really raising consciousness nationally, it was explosive response of women, I think, all over the country.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend, 'cause I've heard it all before, and I've been down there on the floor, and no one's ever gonna keep me down again. Oh yes, I'm wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Oh yes, I'll pay the price, but look how much I gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. You can bend but never break me, 'cause it only serves to make me more determined to achieve my final goal. And I come back even stronger, not a novice any longer, 'cause you deepen the conviction in my soul. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Yes, I'll pay the price, but look how much I gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman.
Betty Friedan was instrumental to the second wave of feminism in the 1960s and 70s. She researched extensively for her revolutionary book, The Feminine Mystique, that helped gather women together for one cause. She spoke and protested all over the nation, raising awareness for the women's movement.
The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan was a bestseller because it really resonated with so many women who were housewives who were following the very traditional family model, which at that time 70% of families in America were the mother, the father, stay-at-home wife, and children. And that was, and there were a lot of women that did that and thought that would be the salvation and the ideal, and then they realized they really weren't very happy. And that's what Betty Friedan really talked about in there.
The majority of American women in many age groups are working outside their home, but most of them are working at low-paid, relatively low-skilled jobs, often in a dead end from professional advancement, and they are not really taking part in the decision-making areas of American life in anything except token.
The feminist revolution had to be fought because women quite simply were stopped at a state of evolution far short of their human capacity. Gloria Steinem went undercover for the CIA as a Playboy bunny. She made public the fact that women were being treated as sexual objects and had the evidence to prove it. She was a big leader and activist during the movement as well, using her abilities as a journalist to bring issues to the public's attention.
And Gloria Steinem was, as you know, a reporter. and went out and got information. And at some point in time, I really don't remember the story, she ran into one of these roadblocks and said from that point on she was no longer a reporter, she was an activist, and she was. And she was, of course, a great deal of help because she's very photogenic, and that helped, got people's attention.
I think it's important for teenagers who have lived such a different life, and if they've never had any history courses about the 60s or the women's rights movement, that they don't really realize that there are a lot of women took a lot of risk to give this great gift of equal rights to women, and that we should not take it for granted because things can change.
What are those?
They're the best. We generally recommend those for ground coffee.
We'll buy all you have of these.
Hadn't I better clear that with the boss?
You just have.